In 1947, when Britain gave up control of its empire in South Asia, it created two huge countries, India and Pakistan. They drew lines on a map to separate them based on religion. But geography is more complicated than just lines on a map. The Muslim-majority areas ended up in the northwest, and now we have Pakistan. In the northeast, there's Bangladesh. The British hoped that dividing India and Pakistan by religion would prevent conflicts, but it actually set the stage for battles and attempted genocide. Today, as we reflect on history, we remember the suffering Bangladesh endured during its liberation war. It was a time when a new nation was born, and all it did wrong was win an election. This day in history reminds us of the cost of those events and the struggle for freedom and justice. In 1947, Pakistan was formed, covering the land we now know as Pakistan and Bangladesh. Even though the people shared the same Muslim faith, there were many differences between them in terms of language, ethnicity, and culture. West Pakistan, where Urdu was spoken, had more power, despite East Pakistan having a larger population of Bengali people. The Bengalis faced discrimination in education, the military, politics, and other parts of life, with the Hindu minority experiencing even more challenges. The government also tried to erase Bengali culture, arts, and literature. On top of this, the resources of East Pakistan were exploited economically, leading to resentment. The East felt like it was treated as a colony rather than an equal partner. Despite their grievances, the Bengalis were known for their non-violent resistance. They sought autonomy through democratic means, with the Awami League, AL, and its leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, advocating for more self-rule for East Pakistan. However, their efforts for a democratic resolution were unsuccessful. In 1970, a series of natural disasters struck East Pakistan, causing widespread devastation. The government's weak response intensified the discontent that had been building for decades. In support of Bengali autonomy, a general strike paralyzed the entire region. Negotiations failed, and the Pakistani government decided to use force. Yahya Khan, the leader at the time, secretly moved thousands of soldiers into East Pakistan in preparation for a military solution. General Tika Khan, known as the Butcher of Balochistan for his harsh suppression of unrest, was tasked with leading this operation. Yahya Khan believed overwhelming force would crush Bengali nationalists. On March 25th, Operation Searchlight was launched, targeting major cities. AL leaders, civil officials, police, intellectuals, and academics were hunted down. The infamous attack on Dhaka University aimed to eliminate potential leaders. The brutality of this operation marked a tragic turning point, leading to a dark chapter in the history of Bangladesh. Pakistani soldiers came into the school, going from one room to another and rounding up teachers and students. They led them outside and killed them. In one night, at least 10 teachers and 100 students were killed. Some students were made to dig graves for the victims before being killed themselves. This was the start of a terrible event called genocide. Pakistan wanted to make the Bengali people weak by removing their leaders. The next day, Sheikh Mujib sent a message to the public. He said they would fight back against the Pakistani attacks with the same strength. East Pakistan was now called Bangladesh, and it was fighting for its freedom. Sheikh Mujib was arrested soon after, but the Bengalis listened to him. 5 groups of the East Bengal Regiment rebelled, and regular people armed themselves for guerrilla warfare. This resistance was called the Mukti Bahini. Bangladesh's small military fought hard against Pakistan, but they were not as many or as strong. Pakistan's attacks were harsh, and by March 28th, around 15,000 Bengalis had been killed. Another 15,000 were dead by early April. The early Bengali resistance was not well organized. By mid-May, Pakistan controlled most big towns and cities, and Bengalis were mostly in the countryside. From May 1971, the war changed to guerrilla fighting as Bengali forces tried to reorganize. Between May and September, up to 100,000 young men were trained as guerrilla fighters. India started helping Bangladesh against Pakistan. Pakistan held on to the cities, arresting and killing many supposed rebels and attacking villages to defeat Bengali forces. Pakistan started to fear any man who could fight might be a rebel. In villages, young men were rounded up and killed. Men had two choices: hope Pakistan would spare them or join the rebels for survival. Many chose to become rebels, seeing it as their only way to live. In Bangladesh, some people joined forces with the Pakistanis during a conflict that took place in 1971. Many of these collaborators were from specific ethnic groups like the Biharis. This cooperation resulted in lasting ethnic divisions. One tragic incident happened in the village of Baronga on May 26, 1971. Pakistani and Allied forces entered the village in the Sylhet district, gathered all the village's men outside the school, and separated Hindus from Muslims. After taking valuables from both groups, many Muslims were released, but the Hindus were tied up and executed in the schoolyard. At least 78 men lost their lives, and one survivor vividly described the horrifying scene of machine gun bullets, blood, and fire. The deliberate targeting of young men during such conflicts is a common aspect of genocides. By eliminating the fighting population, perpetrators simultaneously erase the reproducing population, leaving older men, women, and children vulnerable. This male-focused genocide is sometimes referred to as a gendercide, though women also suffered. Without men to protect them, women faced violence from the advancing soldiers, including systemic rape as part of military operations. It's estimated that at least 200,000 women and girls, spanning different age groups, experienced sexual violence by Pakistani forces in 1971. The ongoing violence shocked the world, triggering a massive refugee crisis, with most seeking refuge in India. India swiftly supported Bangladesh's quest for independence, seeing it as a way to weaken its long-standing adversary, Pakistan. The influx of 10 million Bengali refugees, mostly Hindu, into India in 1971 was overwhelming. India sought international assistance, urging countries to withdraw support from Pakistan. The Soviet Union aligned with India in condemning the violence, while China and the Islamic world supported Pakistan. The Western world, including the U.S., officially allied with Pakistan, but public sentiment favored Bangladesh as reports of Pakistani brutality circulated in Western media. The international stage became a battleground of ideologies, with India and the Soviet Union advocating for Bangladesh, while China and Pakistan found support elsewhere. The conflict in Bangladesh became a global concern, reflecting the complex geopolitical landscape of the time. In 1971, the Indian government faced a tough situation. They were worried that taking military action could upset China or the U.S. and lead to a big international war. To navigate this, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi went on a quick tour to places like Moscow, Washington, D.C., and London. Her goal was to weaken support for Pakistan and make it easier for India to get involved. She convinced the Nixon administration to stop giving military aid to Pakistan in October 1971. At the same time, China told a Pakistani delegation that they wouldn't help if India got involved in Bangladesh. Pakistan saw India's moves as aggressive and launched a preemptive strike on Indian air bases on December 3rd. However, it didn't cause much damage. India saw this as an act of war and responded with strategic strikes on Pakistan's air and naval bases the next day, severely damaging Pakistan's military capabilities. Indian troops quickly moved into Bangladesh, teaming up with local freedom fighters to push out the Pakistani forces. Their joint effort was a huge success. In less than 2 weeks, most of Pakistan's air force was disabled. The Indian Navy had cut off naval access between Pakistan and Bangladesh, and many towns and cities were recaptured. By December 8th, they were on the outskirts of Dhaka, and by December 16th, they had retaken the capital. However, victory came with a heavy price. As Pakistani forces realized they were losing, they brutally attacked civilians. Massacres occurred in the final days of the war, with intellectuals and professionals being targeted. The liberation forces discovered evidence of atrocities committed by Pakistan, including captured women abused in military camps and mass graves. On December 17, 1971, with Pakistan's military defeated and Bangladeshi forces back in control, a ceasefire was declared. Pakistani forces in Bangladesh surrendered, ending the war and its genocidal acts. Bangladesh became the first nation to gain independence through a successful war against a post-colonial state, and the Indian military's intervention was a rare instance of stopping genocide through external help. This historical chapter highlights the complexities and human toll of conflicts in the pursuit of freedom. Many experts agree that something very bad happened in Bangladesh, calling it a genocide. This means that a large number of people were targeted and killed because of their ethnicity. In this case, leaders of certain ethnic groups were specifically targeted, and there was a deliberate effort to wipe out Bengali men and harm Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. The death toll from the war and genocide is debated among historians, but it's generally thought to be between 300,000 and 500,000. However, Bangladesh officially says 3 million people died in 1971. The war and genocide forced 40 million people to leave their homes, and many others were hurt or suffered sexual abuse. The effects of the genocide are still being felt today. Many women who were victims of rape were rejected by their families because it was believed that the rapes brought shame to the family. This led to a large number of women being abandoned after 1971. The loss of many men also caused serious problems in society and the economy because important jobs were left vacant, forcing women to take on these roles. The violence and trauma from the genocide also caused a significant increase in violent crime that continues today. Some ethnic minorities who collaborated with Pakistani forces faced violent reprisals, and up to 150,000 people were killed in post-war Bangladesh because they were seen as collaborators. Efforts to hold those who collaborated accountable resulted in tens of thousands of detentions, but very few people were actually put on trial or convicted. Pakistan, despite overwhelming evidence, denies any wrongdoing and downplays the number of casualties. No one from Pakistan has faced punishment for the murders, rapes, and abuses that occurred during this time. The world's attention moved away from Bangladesh once the massacres were no longer in the news. Today, the Bangladesh genocide is just one of many forgotten atrocities from the 20th century. The intensity of this genocide is notable because it happened in just 9 months between March and December 1971. Unfortunately, as we've seen before, the scale of a crime doesn't guarantee that the perpetrators will be punished or that the victims will be remembered. We hope this video has helped you understand more about what happened during those crucial 9 months in Bangladesh. If you found this information valuable, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this.